what about eviction filings? And this is where COVID-19 has had an impact in terms of how things work right now. We have a partial moratorium that's in place when it comes to the eviction filings. And remember, the eviction filing is when the landlord has given you the notice period is over, and now the landlord files something in court saying this person needs to be evicted. So what is this moratorium? So remember, we got these different categories of situations where the landlord could end your lease, you know, for unpaid rent, for a lease violation, or just like non-renewal. So if it's for a lease violation, or if it's no cause, if it's not, it's just because they are not going to renew it, then right now, under Illinois law and an order from Governor Pritzker, there are actually no eviction filings that are allowed through January 9th. That's how long the order goes for. It's renewed every 30 days. So through January 9th, no filings under those purposes, unless you are a threat to the health and safety of people in the building. So if they can show that, like, for some reason you are actually endangering people in the building, then they could file something in court. But otherwise, no filings in court, no eviction filings. They can give you, maybe they give you a notice, but no filings. And that stops the process. Remember that mountain I showed you? That stops it. With regard to unpaid rent, it's more complicated. No filings, no eviction filings if you qualify for protection and you submit a form. I'm going to explain what that means. So to avoid an eviction filing based on unpaid rent, you need to submit a declaration. And I'll show you what a declaration looks like. You submit a declaration to your landlord. You need to qualify for that declaration, and you need to be honest. You got to be honest, because if you lie on this form, it's not just any old form. This is an actual sworn oath that you're making, that you say, I qualify. So how do you know that you qualify? There are 4 things to qualify. First, you're not rich. That's the big thing. If you can't expect to make more than $99,000 in 2020. If you are making that much money, then the idea is that, well, you should be able to pay your rent somehow, you know. So you're not rich. Or if you got a stimulus check, or if you didn't have to file taxes in 2019 or report your income to the IRS in 2019. These are situations where you would be protected. So, you know, not making more than $99,000 a year, or $198,000 if you're a couple, if you file jointly. If you got a stimulus check, or if you didn't have to report in 2019, then you're good. You got this criteria down. Next, COVID put you behind on rent. What does this mean? Various things come to mind, right? You lost a job, or you lost hours, or you had a salary reduction, or maybe you had a health crisis in your household that caused you to have unbelievable expenses because there's not enough access to good health insurance out there right now. So because of COVID-19, somehow it put you into a financial situation where now you are behind on rent. The third thing is that you made your best efforts to stay up to date with rent. Maybe you tried to do partial payments. Maybe you talked to the landlord about why you can't pay, but the idea is that this is best efforts in the context of the cost of your necessities. Cost of necessities, anything from medicine to internet to electricity to winter clothing, food, childcare. Considering the cost of all those necessities, after that, you did your best to keep up with rent. And that might mean you didn't pay any rent. It just means best efforts, okay? Finally, the last thing, you're at risk of homelessness. So if you were to lose your home, you would not have any place else to go. You would either become homeless, or you would have to go to a shelter, something like that. Those are the 4 conditions. And if you do that, if you qualify and you submit a declaration that basically says all of what I just said, then the landlord cannot file an eviction against you in court. And that stops the process there. So this is why it's really important, however, to not lie about it, okay? Here's another movie reference. Anybody know this movie? Someone's got it, no?
Meet the Parents?
That's Meet the Parents, yeah. So you can't lie on this form. So imagine you just you did this form, you showed it to your landlord to say that you can't be brought to court about an eviction. You have to be honest, because signing that form is basically like going on a jury stand and talking. You can't lie in the jury stand. If you were to lie, it would be perjury. You could be thrown in jail or fined, things like that. Same thing with this document. It's a serious document. You're swearing under oath that you qualify. So, do you need to prove that you qualify? That's an interesting question, and there's a two-part answer to it. You don't need to prove that you qualify for the declaration when you submit the declaration. That's just a form you sign and you give it to your landlord, and it should protect you. But this is where, things get complicated, because if the landlord decides, if for some reason the landlord thinks that you're lying or it's not true, or if they know for a fact that like actually you are making tons of money and you're totally capable, or that they know for sure you wouldn't be homeless, like there are things that the landlord might think that would lead them to challenge the declaration. In which case, if it got to court, then maybe you would need to be able to prove it. So anything you can do to kind of back up the things that you have in the declaration, like maybe it's a letter from the landlord, letter from your former employer showing that you lost a job, or you could show evidence of like your budget and how much income you have and how much money you have to spend on your necessities. There's all sorts of different ways that you could imagine proving up that you qualify for the declaration. But just so you know, if you're scrambling right now, you don't have to try and get all of that together before submitting the declaration. Just go ahead. If you do qualify, sign that declaration and you give it to the landlord and you're done. Now, I think this is a good point to think about what your tools are, okay? These are weapons that you have as a tenant. Think of it that way. You want to be maintaining files and papers of everything that happens between you and your landlord. Like if there's a slip that the landlord gives you, or information, or the lease, make sure to keep that organized. I recommend having like a folder of all your interactions with your landlords. Take notes as well. Sometimes landlords will say things to you just in the hallway or something like that. If that happens, immediately take out a little notebook and write down what happened, the date, and what was agreed to or what was told to you. You want to be able to keep that so that you're not trying to explain to the lawyer or to a judge or someone's like, oh, I think this happened at this point. No, you are a vigilant tenant with good notes of everything that's happened, right? Take pictures of things. Take pictures of damages in your unit. Take pictures of notices that were slipped under your door. Take pictures of if you need to submit something to the landlord. If you're submitting the declaration in paper form, you could take a picture of yourself handing it to the landlord or putting it into a Dropbox, like that stuff. It sometimes sounds a little silly, but that could be really powerful to show like, look, I submitted the declaration. Here's a picture of me doing it, Judge. And then of course, emails. Don't delete any of those emails. The emails that you have with your landlord are important to maintain. But I want to flip this on you. Remember that when you are emailing with your landlord, you're creating a written record. You're creating a story about your interaction with your landlord. So when you write to your landlord, when you send emails, know that you are creating that history. So be thoughtful about how you communicate as well.